Unfortunately for ugly people, pretty privilege is very real and it can affect your chances at landing a job. Scientists have also proven that attractive people are seen as more trustworthy. So we're going to go through this recent research, not going to go into a bunch of detail, but I think it's safe to say we do trust the science. We believe the science.
When they agree with us, we trust the science. When they disagree with us, we tell you it's all fake. And it's all done by big pharma.
It's fake and gay when we disagree with it, and when we agree with it, we believe it. But I think we didn't need science to even tell us that beauty is objective. Beauty is not, in fact, in the eye of the beholder. And you see this over and over, that the vast majority of people agree on what and who is attractive, generally speaking. So they've said in this article, today's fiercely competitive job market, the economic advantages of beauty are undeniable. Numerous studies have shown that attractive individuals benefit from a beauty bonus and earn higher salaries on average. Certain high-paying professions are built around beauty, and there is a positive halo effect to being beautiful. Beautiful individuals are consistently expected to be more intelligent and thought to be better leaders, which influences their career trajectories and opportunities.
It makes me think of when Hollywood used to show you a beautiful woman, was the idea that you expected her to be smart, or was it that the bimbo thing was like, look, she's pretty, she's blonde, is she expected to be all that smart? Like I see contradictions there a little bit.
Well, Hollywood kind of switched gears because the bimbo trope was deemed misogynistic, but it was never true that beautiful women were less intelligent than anyone else. I think they switched to like, oh, you thought that she was a bimbo, but she's actually a neuroscientist or something. Like she's actually, I don't know, you said like a nuclear physicist.
Yes,
something.
Denise Richards playing Christmas Jones, the nuclear physicist in The World Is Not Enough.
Yes.
The James Bond movie.
It is thought individuals perceived as beautiful are more likely to benefit from people's trust, which makes it easier for them to get promoted or to strike business deals. The idea that individuals who look better are thought to be healthier and have more positive social interactions in their past, which might influence their trustworthiness. So I'm not going to explain all the details of how they went about this, but they had a bunch of volunteers rate people on a scale of attractiveness, and then they put them into games with each other to test their selfless trustworthiness. And they did find out that attractiveness has very little to nothing to do with how trustworthy you are.
Not actual trustworthiness, just how people perceive you.
Just their perception of trustworthiness.
And that makes, I feel like the rational person should be able to make that assumption themselves, that you treat somebody as an individual. And one of the hardest things maybe to do is to look past how someone looks and objectively look at their behavior and judge for yourself. That is literally
impossible.
It's, or try your best. Try your best.
That's fine, but that's literally impossible. It's just not how human brains work. It never will be.
Right.
I think even if you tell yourself all the time that you judge people based on their character and not their superficial features, it's not really true.
For sure. You can consciously know that there's a difference, but subconsciously you can't always be in control of how you react to.
It's your lizard brain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
how you're wired.
It made me think. I was listening to somebody talk last night about like the DeSantis shoe debacle and why couldn't he just embrace being short. Said because they're not going to elect a short president. They're not going to.
There have been short presidents though.
Not in the modern age.
And you only see them on TV.
You got to stand next to. If you got to stand next to other world leaders. How you look matters. And if you're going to go stand next to Putin or stand next to Xi Jinping, you can't be looking up at them and project an image of power.
Especially with the internet now, you will get roasted nonstop for something super arbitrary like that people, again, consciously know makes no difference in your ability to lead, but will lose you votes just because
it will.
We're intelligent, but it only goes so far.
We're fickle creatures.
Right. We're not perfect.
Yeah. So they concluded that when investigating actual behavior, beautiful individuals are neither more nor less trustworthy than anyone else. And they also found, this is interesting, although women are generally seen as more socially intelligent, they were not better than men at rating trustworthiness.
That's surprising.
The one of my favorite memes, it says like a woman's intuition is never wrong, and somebody says there's way too many single mothers out there for that to be true.
Yeah.
So it says, is it that the woman's intuition is bad, or is it that the guy is just really, really good at being deceptive? A little bit of both.
This also raises the question, do attractive people know that they're treated better just for their looks? And
Is that actual unconscious bias? Like they just don't realize they're getting...
do they even know that they benefit in society or in the job market from being attractive? And it seems like from these results, they actually aren't aware of it because they don't trust people any less. Like if you knew that people were treating you a certain way based on superficial features, then you might trust people less, but they were just as gullible as everyone else in the study.
Critical theorists make that same argument about white people who say that they don't, just because you don't feel any different doesn't mean that you're not actually treated that you're actually treated better. You just can't perceive it.
That's the thing though. I think pretty privilege is far more real than white privilege or male privilege, especially in this day and age. Like, I think the reality is the majority of people, at least for now, in the United States are white. Most people have an in-group preference for their own race. Therefore, that would mean there's a perception of white privilege. Right? The majority of
privilege.
people in society are going to have an in-group preference for themselves,
I
right?
guess who would be the exception that seeps into that? It would be people who are exceptionally attractive still.
Sure.
So the pretty privilege still kind of trumps the
white privilege or whatever
or whatever privilege
Yeah.
you put in there.
Yeah. And a lot of women have made that work in the business. One of the things you mentioned earlier that I thought was interesting is you're talking about how they would turn them now into, like in the movies or whatever, they turn them into doctors or lawyers or high intelligence positions. But what it would have been back in the day is a woman who's extremely beautiful would know how to use her beauty to her advantage, which shows a level of emotional intelligence and social intelligence that teaches her to use what she has available to her to get the most out of every situation that she enters. Now, in movies and stuff, they would probably portray it as borderline sociopathic in a way that they can.
I don't think
They can
so.
bend a situation or men to their will to get what they want. I'm saying in the most extreme or egregious
There's a line.
of examples, right?
Feminine
that
wiles.
You can use your
femme
feminine
fatale.
wiles. It's one of the reasons there's an old show called Republic of Doyle. Starring Alan Hocko. And what I liked about it is he plays a private investigator, and all of the women in the show are not all, but a lot of the women in the show, like all the men and the women are kind of two-timing because he's dealing with somewhat seedy people as a private investigator. And a lot of the women explicitly use their looks and sexuality to get what they want out of situations. And it's kind of a mixture of feeling both written by men and how they actually wish it would be, but actually quite honest about how a lot of people use what they have available to them to get what they want.
Well, it's interesting you say that those are probably written by men, like those scenes and those scenarios, because maybe that is how they truly perceive it, and the women are not aware of that they go into a room, they ask for a job or they ask for a raise or for whatever, and from the male perspective it seems a lot more like flirty or something or whatever, and thus sways the situation and makes them trust the person more or makes them more inclined to give the attractive person the raise or whatever they're asking for.
And I always like that type of writing because you could say that it's disrespectful to women to write them that way, but then they write the men as just utter buffoons who fall for it every time, which I enjoy. It's like if there's few things that make
Just
men
utter buffoons.
stupider, it's sex. It is.
Right.
It makes men stupid.
Also, I wanted to play this TikTok from a professional advice influencer
It's not a thing.
talking about pretty privilege and how important it is to look hot when you do job interviews. So,
How about just look presentable?
well, she says you gotta look hot.
Okay, here we go. Oh, hold on. Volume.
Here, and I have a job interview. What's one of your best pieces of advice? look really hot. What? I thought you were gonna say speak slowly, prepare questions, do your research? Yeah, those things are great, but you should really focus on looking attractive. Why? Because of the halo effect. The what now? The halo effect refers to a psychological bias that humans have. If we see a positive trait in somebody, like being conventionally attractive, we tend to assume other positive traits about that person. Like they're trustworthy, they're intelligent, they're responsible, even if we have no data to back that up. That's kinda messed up. It is. It's entirely unfair, especially considering our very narrow-minded societal ideals of beauty. But it's deeply embedded in human nature and something that everybody is guilty of, whether they know it or not. And that is why it is important for you to look hot as in your next job interview. Just look clean and put together, and this will subconsciously communicate to the interviewer that you are as put together as you look.
She changes her. She says, "Just look clean and put together." Okay.
Right, she tones it down.
Iron your shirt. Okay. Iron your shirt. Put on some clean clothes. Wash your face. Do your hair. These are things that
As a woman, you need to do more than that.
the point, but that's not what she says here at the end. She says, "Look clean and put together." Right? Like,
Unfortunately, that's just bad advice. I don't know why she reversed on her own advice. Like, she kind of stepped back what she was saying, but you need to do more than just taking a shower and like being clean. Like, that's kind of the bare minimum. You need to go above and beyond.
do your makeup right.
Things like that.
Men, comb your hair. Okay? Get a haircut before you go.
But why is this unfair? I think that until just a
not
few
unfair.
years ago, right, it's not unfair at all. Until just a few years ago, I think everyone in society was kind of expected to look presentable when they leave the house or when they go to work. But now everyone just rolls out of bed and like puts on a pair of sweatpants and Crocs. And then they go to Wendy's and order food with AI.
Yeah.
And then they go home. But, you know, there's no expectation to be presentable in public anymore. And I don't think it's unfair to expect people to do that at all.
It's kind of very, very basic to assume that if this person is well kept, they do their makeup, they do their hair, they dress nice, that likely there's high levels of conscientiousness, which means that they probably take care of themselves on a regular basis. They pay their bills on time as best they can. They're organized.
They're willing to put in effort.
They're willing to put in effort. Those things are apparently what she said. What I feel like she's saying is like those don't need to be communicated, but they absolutely do. And you don't do that by saying, "I am conscientious. I get up on time. I take care of myself." You can portray that like 70% of communication is nonverbal, not just body language, but how you portray yourself outwardly to the world. That's not unfair.
It's just stupid how often we hear about white privilege and we hear about male privilege and about straight privilege and cis privilege and all these different forms of privilege, when the realest form of privilege of all is whether you win the genetic lottery and are naturally attractive. That is like the realest form. That and like and being raised in a wealthy family, probably both of those things are the realest form of privilege. But we don't hear about pretty privilege as much because that would mean someone would have to admit to themselves and others that they are not attractive, and that's incredibly embarrassing.
I also think it's why they've worked so hard to change beauty standards.
Right.
It's one of the craziest ideas in the world is that instead of changing myself or working to change myself, I am going to try to change all of society's ideals of what beauty is.
Right.
That's bonkers.
I mean, yeah, but also it mentioned in the study that women rate other people as more attractive generally than they are.
That's funny
I
because
thought, I've always heard the opposite of that.
that like when men and women rate somebody, the women rate a few people very high and everybody else low, and men just kind of rate generally in the middle across the board or something like that.
Well,
right?
it
Like
says-
averages out.
Women are on average rated as more beautiful than men, and they also rate others on average as more beautiful than men do.
I wonder if that's because the men
That's what it says.
are horny and the women want to tell the ugly women, "Yeah, you're beautiful," so they don't change, so they lower the competition. Of course,
But according to the study, they're not actually lying. They really think that.
then maybe we've been wrong this whole. Maybe all these women who say, "Lizzo, you're beautiful," actually mean it.
Right. I feel like every other study has suggested the opposite. Or like when they take the Tinder statistics and men never get swiped right on, but men will swipe right on literally every single woman.
Well, this is why we need to add a disclaimer or a caveat here, which is that there's a replication crisis in science right now. And basically, none of these studies actually mean anything.
They're fun to talk about, but bear very little weight.
Go
in
off
actual
of
society.
your personal experience and your gut instincts more than whatever scientists are telling you about reality.
I try to tell people all the time. I'm like, people, like if you get into a fight on Twitter and you use anecdotal evidence, everybody gets mad at you. I'm like, we live and die by anecdotal evidence because you experience the world and then you make your base valuations on what's going on around you based on the things that have happened to you. I don't think in statistics as I'm existing. I'd say most of the time it feels like existing and basing your life on statistics is probably worse for you than evaluating what goes on around you and making your decisions based on that.
That's what happened during like COVID. You know, instead of just looking around, people were being told all these things that were framed as statistical.
Yes.
You know, like the right words were used so people believed the statistics because, you know, it's based on research and data.
My favorite was
science.
when I went outside right afterwards and they put like the boards over the basketball hoops so you can't play basketball. And I'm like, okay, a logical person can probably deduce that if we're talking about infections, a strong immune system and getting physical activity is good for you, right? That doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But if you're told otherwise and a dude in a white lab coat tells you that that's bad, then I guess it's bad. I've also heard that 98% of statistics are made up on the spot.
True.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.